Welcome everyone to the Write Up webinar or How to Write Successfully and Efficiently as Working Women. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar where we will be discussing the basics and not so basics about business writing, especially for us as working women. So as we get started, I'd like to thank you all for joining and taking the time to be on this webinar at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I know it's not necessarily easy for everyone to attend at this time. So thank you for joining. First, as a quick intro, my name is Solange Lopes. I will be the one running this webinar for the next hour or so. I am a writer, an entrepreneur, and a recovering CPA. Actually, I'm still a practicing CPA, but I am also the founder of the corporate sister career, business, and lifestyle site for women. And as part of this career, business, and lifestyle site, of course, I do a lot of writing. And considering that my corporate and business experience spans over 10 years, I have had a lot of time to think about and to practice my business writing, both as a corporate veteran and as a writer today. And I also happen to be a coffee addict, a book lover, and a cheese collector, which does not have a direct correlation to our topic today, but I thought I would add it as a fun note in terms of introducing myself. So today we're talking about business writing, more specifically business writing for working women. And as we get started, let's do a quick run over of the agenda for today's presentation. We'll be talking about effective business writing and why effective business writing is so important, especially for us as working women. We'll also be discussing 6 steps that we absolutely need to write persuasive and effective business copy or business writing, whether it's in the context of our careers or our businesses, whether you're operating from an office or a cubicle in the corporate world or from your own business, or whether you're looking at business writing in terms of communicating within your side hustle. These 6 steps are some of the pillar steps that are really needed in order for us to really communicate our message as working women and men, but especially as working women. Now let's get started and get in the thick of this presentation. Why business writing and why effective business writing, especially for us as working women? It's no secret that as working women, our voices tend to be significantly silenced in the corporate world. We recently celebrated Equal Pay Day, which I personally don't celebrate because it happens to be the day where women actually get paid when women actually get paid the same as men for the same job. That's the day usually around April 10th, where we actually reach the threshold that men would have already reached at December 31st of the prior year in terms of pay. And while we have noted some advances in that department, there is still much work to do. So for us as working women, whether it's in the corporate world, in our careers, or in our businesses, our voices are not often heard, which translates into a significant pay gap and other disparities that are very noticeable at work and in business. And this is where business writing can help us kind of level the playing field, or at least go beyond some of the limitations that are very often imposed on us. Business writing is one of the communication pillars that can allow us as working women and men to boost our authority, inspire others, be more clear in the message and the ideas that we're sharing, and most importantly, persuade and influence those around us. A lot of the things that we may not be able to say in the meeting room or in the boardroom, for the simple reason that we simply may not have access to the meeting room or the boardroom, we are able to we're able to convey them through authoritative, clear, qualified, inspiring messages through our business writing. And this is why it is so important for us to be able to master the pillars of business writing and really understand what principles are involved in turning our writing from almost robotic and from almost sounding like everyone else to really standing out and standing apart from the crowd, differentiating ourselves, and allowing for our own ideas, our own concepts to be heard loud and clear. So as I mentioned earlier, business writing is so important for us as working women because it does give us more access and increased exposure. It's an access and an exposure that we often don't have because of the disparity between men and women in the workplace and in business. But being able to convey certain ideas, principles, and concepts through our business writing can help us level the playing field, and can also help us kind of have our voices heard better and rise above the fray. So what are the pillar steps that are involved in making our business writing as effective, as persuasive, and as a powerful tool of influence for us as working women? Well, the first step can be a surprising one. It's actually to put your pen down, or actually put your hands down if you're ready to start typing on your computer. Most business writing from men and women, from pretty much everyone, misses the mark because of this simple first step, in that we don't take the time to plan our writing, especially our business writing, especially considering how the business world is hurried these days and how, everything is due yesterday, and we're trying to get as much done as possible in as little time as possible. We don't often take the time to put the pen down and actually to go through a process of introspection and reflection in order to clarify our message before writing it down. Business writing, contrarily to popular opinion, is not just about words. It's not just about uttering words on the page, sharing ideas and concepts. All of that is very good. But the most important part of business writing is the thought process part. It's the part where you actually come up with a concept and a clear message that you refine in thought first before putting it on paper or on your computer, for that matter. So part of taking the time to think about the message that you're sending through your business writing is to identify the why behind your why, or to define your objective. What are you trying to accomplish? How many emails do you receive on a daily basis in which, you're going through the email, you're reading through, and you're just asking yourself, what is this person trying to get at? The objective is not clear. You're not clear on what the person is even asking. And the resulting effect is a series of back and forth communications that are muddier and muddier as they keep going back and forth, wasting time, wasting energy, and above all, giving you a wrong impression about the sender. So as working women especially, it is so important that we define our objective before we even throw ourselves into this business writing process. What are we trying to accomplish? If you can define your message in 10 words or less, you are clearer on your message than 99% of the people who are sending business communications out every single day. This includes emails, business reports, all kinds of different business communication tools that are sent in and out every day of offices and businesses. So how do we go about clarifying our message? It's as simple as asking yourself, what do you want to get out of the communication that you're sending? Instead of jumping on your laptop or your computer and just sending an email asking for a random question, try to sit back for a few minutes and ask yourself, in an ideal world, what would you like to get out of this business communication that you're getting ready to send? And what you will notice through this process is that not only does it clarify clarify your message if there is a message there. But in addition to that, it helps you take a step back and actually eliminate a good portion of the unnecessary business communication that you would otherwise have sent and had communicated back and forth with other parties. A lot of the business communications, whether it's emails, whether it's reports that are sent out, do not serve any purpose. It is very sad to say it, but much of it is unnecessary. And going through this process of reflection before sending out an email or before sending out a report can eliminate something that's unnecessary and something that can give a negative impression to a coworker, a manager, an executive, or a business client. And there's also this thing that I like to call the 5-year-old concept. A good way to clarify your message before you get ready to send out any business communication, whether through an email or some form of report, is to ask yourself, would this make sense to a 5-year-old? And of course, many of the concepts and the ideas that we deal with in corporate and in our businesses are rather complex. But the trick to effective business writing is to simplify complex ideas and concepts into easy to grasp concepts. And this is where the 5-year-old concept comes into play. If you are not able to take complex ideas and complex concepts and simplify them into a message that can be clear to a 5-year-old, chances are your business communication is not effective and it is too complex. If it is too complex and not effective enough, you will not accomplish the goals that you have set for this particular piece of business communication. It may be a report that you're sending to your manager. If the message through it is not clear enough, if you are not able to actually disintegrate the complex ideas into easier to grasp concepts, chances are it will just land on the desk of your manager and not go any further, or attract some kind of a bad attention on your work because it is not clear enough. So are the concepts and the ideas that you're discussing clear enough to be run by a 5-year-old? If not, then you may need to reevaluate the message that you're sending through your business communication. Another important pillar of effective business writing is your audience. Who are you talking to? And I have seen this happen so many times in corporate where a very detailed, number-oriented type of report would be sent to someone in strategy who couldn't care less about the numbers, but would be more interested in the analytical part of whatever process we were discussing in the particular report. It is so important to tailor the message to your audience, because you may just be sending unnecessary and confusing pieces of communication to people who, one, could not make sense of it, and two, would be utterly annoyed at it. And you wouldn't want that to happen, especially if you're talking to influential business clients who could be holding your next $1 million contract in their hands, or if you're communicating with executives and higher ups who could be holding your next promotion or bonus in their hands as well. So you may want to take some time as you put your pen down, as you step away from your computer, to actually think about your audience. Who are you talking to? Who are you sending this email to? Who are you sending this piece of business communication to? Is it a highly analytical person who may be more interested in the details of the process? Or is it more of an accountant who is more interested in seeing the breakdown of the numbers and the financial figures? And you have to go to even to the extent of visualizing how the person would be using this information, what they would be doing with this information. Visualize them reading your email, going through your report, and start thinking about the things that they would be looking for in your particular piece of business writing. That is how you tailor your message appropriately to the right audience. And sometimes, whether in corporate or in business, there are many stakeholders involved, and it may not necessarily be easy enough to determine who the final message is going to. And in those cases, just get clear about it. It may require you asking your boss who this report is intended for, so you can actually tailor your writing to the intended audience. It may be, going a few steps further and inquiring as to who the stakeholders of a particular business report in your business are, and who your report or your email is going to, so that you can tailor your language and you can tailor the data that is included in your particular piece of communication adequately. Now let's talk about the Withum approach. Withum simply stands for what's in it for me. It's a very benefit-based approach that is very often overlooked in business writing and business communications in general. The big secret of persuasion is to tap into other people's interests. One very powerful, if not the most powerful way of communicating with human beings in general is to make sure that you're talking about something that is of benefit to them. As people, we are simply selfish creatures and self-interested creatures, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just the reality of things. And in order for your communication and your business writing to be as effective as possible, it has to include something that is of interest to them. How can whatever it is that you're writing, whether it's a proposal, a report, an email, or the subject of whatever piece of writing you're preparing, benefit the other party, benefit your intended audience? And that takes us back to my previous point about knowing who you're talking to and who your audience is. Because the more you know about your audience, the more you're able to know about things that motivate them, things that interest them, things that would attract them towards your message. You would know that a more analytical person would be more interested in the breakdown of the process in simple steps. You would know that someone in the accounting department might be more interested in seeing the breakdown of financial figures. So how can your proposal, your report, or the subject of your piece of writing benefit them? How can it tap into their interest, the stuff they're interested in, the stuff that their work or their motivations revolves around? It's important in that sense to adopt a mutually beneficial approach. You may be sending a report or an email to get some kind of information or to express an opinion and get the buyout of a particular department or a particular stakeholder. And in that sense, you may be looking out for your interest as well. But you have to include in that piece of writing something that is of interest to them. Even if it is just the nature of the data that is included, it has to speak to them. It has to make sense to them, and it has to benefit them. And this is where we get to the power of storytelling. And I had an interesting illustration here of an executive giving a presentation on successful mobile payment solutions, and on the other hand, the Game of Thrones. I may be the only person on the planet who has not watched a full season of the Game of Thrones series. I understand and I feel terrible about it. But in between a presentation of an executive and an episode of the Game of Thrones, which one would speak more to you? You may not necessarily be attracted to the Game of Thrones genre, but in between, watching an episode and watching a story unfold and, being exposed to a dry presentation from, a higher up or an executive at your company, chances are you may pick the Game of Thrones episode. And the reason for it is that storytelling simply has power. And it doesn't just have power on our TV screens or in the books we read. Storytelling has enormous power in business as well, because the point of business is to persuade and to influence people, whether it's towards our processes, towards our products, or whatever it is that we're marketing or selling or offering to the other party. And when it comes to that, there is nothing more powerful than telling the story around the data or the information that you're trying to communicate. And as you're organizing your data into a story, remember to keep it as simple and stupid as possible. And this is where we touched on the KISS principle. Simpler is better. One of the biggest misconceptions about effective business writing and effective writing is in general is that the more complex, the better. The more acronyms or jargon you can use, the better. The opposite is actually true. Remember the 5-year-old concept that I had mentioned earlier? Making your ideas and your concepts as digestible and as simple as possible so that a 5-year-old could easily grasp them. The same goes for each and every piece of business writing that you may be putting out there. Say no to any company acronyms and slangs, any technical jargon that may be confusing for someone who is not in the same environment as you. And even if you are writing to people who are in the same environment as you, same department, same group, it is still crucial to keep it as simple as possible. You want to be able to have a clear message being communicated, because what happens in many businesses and many companies is you kind of never know where your business writing, where your business communication ends up, especially as it goes with emails. One email may get forwarded, which may get forwarded again. A business report may be shared in between different parties. And considering the extent of the increased audience that you can have when it comes to your business writing and the resulting impression that you can create, it is just better to keep it as simple, as understandable and digestible as possible. And some of the key principles in keeping it simple and in simplifying business writing in general is to always keep an active tone and a conversational tone. One of the biggest mistakes we see is the use of the passive voice in business writing, which gives a connotation of, indirect action and not being involved in the process, or a very stiff robot-like tone that doesn't give the impression that someone is actually behind the words that are being written. The point is, you must write like yourself. Your personality should come through your business writing. And it can be challenging because in certain business settings, in most business settings, we think that, we have to adopt quite a formal attitude and communicate in a formal way. However, being more formal and polite doesn't mean being devoid of personality. You can inject your personality in your business writing as much as possible. If I can take a piece of business writing from you and it just doesn't tell me anything about you, it doesn't leave a lasting impression on me. So how do you make your personality shine through your business writing, especially in certain formal settings like tech or maybe, medical environments or certain industries that tend to be more formal? It's a matter of connection. It's a matter of connecting with the other party. If you were to send an email to your best friend, would you go at it with a very formal, very dry tone, or would you talk about things that you have in common, or maybe where you left off during your last conversation, or something that the topic at hand is reminding you about them? This is about establishing a connection, not necessarily being all colorful in your language or having your personality, shine in a colorful, less formal way. This is about establishing a connection, putting yourself as a person behind the words, a person who knows that the other party is interested in certain things, or that they had a conversation about something in particular the last time they met. So having this human rapport, this human connection, that's really what makes the person and the personality shine behind the business writing, while still keeping the necessary formality and the necessary polite and courteous tone involved. So in conclusion, as we've gone through this presentation and talked about some of the most critical pillars of effective business writing, especially for us as working women, what I want us to leave this presentation with is the clear understanding that business writing is power. It's power. It's a currency. It's really something that can make the difference between you getting that promotion, that $1 million contract, that new client, or whatever advantage you can get in the business world and not getting it at all. And within this power lies the advantage of authenticity. Authenticity is a huge asset. We've been socialized to believe that business writing has to be all formal and robot-like, when instead it really should rely on the power of storytelling and the power of making your personality and who you are shine through your words. So this is an encouragement, especially for us as working women, to use our business writing to let our ideas shine and kind of level the playing field, even and especially when we don't have access and exposure to certain rooms and our voices may be silent, to use business writing as a powerful asset for our work. So I hope this presentation has clarified some aspects of business writing and communicated very clearly some of the most essential pillars of effective business writing for us as working women. I invite you to continue the conversation with me and book your free strategy session, and let's chat about anything career or business related. You can book your strategy session at bit.ly/TCS free strategy, bit.ly/TCS free strategy. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. If there are any questions, please let me know. Email me at corporate@thecorporatesister.com. Again, it's corporate@thecorporatesister.com, and let's continue this conversation. Thank you for watching, everyone.